At a strange night at Hillsborough, Boro do find a way of getting a win, despite it not being far from our best performance. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Project Boro, and today we are here to review Boro's 1-0 win away at Hillsborough, which was far from convincing and definitely falls under the bracket of job done. But it was an incredibly unique and strange atmosphere at Hillsborough, to which the Boro fans actually outnumbered the home fans. It was really, really strange, but I want to start the video by just saying huge credit to all the Sheffield Wednesday fans on both sides, really. The ones who still went there to support their team last night. I can't imagine how hard it is to get up and support your team when they're in the position that they're in, but of course also to the, thousands and thousands and thousands who stayed away in protest against Chansiri. People like him are just cancerous individuals who should be nowhere near owning a football club, and for the sake of Sheffield Wednesday, of course a massive club with some fantastic history, I can only hope and pray that they do get their situation sorted as soon as possible, because it's awful to see any team like that at a home game with no one turning up because of the situation they're in. It's, awful to see, and I do wish them all the best in getting their situation sorted out. But of course it was such a strange night. I did do a matchday vlog. I did go last night, so check the vlog out. It will be on the channel already. And I don't know if that played a part in the result, the performance, or what, but as we kind of thought and predicted with Boro, we did make it a lot harder than what it perhaps needed to be. Now, of course, you always have to respect the opposition, and no one has any God-given right to rock up at any ground, regardless of the situation, and just win. So, we've got to take the 3 points and be very glad that we got them. And at the same time, Boro did have some huge chances and should have definitely scored a couple more. So it's a difficult one to judge this. I think in moments, Boro did have some really good moments and briefly some really good spells in the game. But in terms of managing the game, we weren't great. We had some spells where we were really poor, really sloppy and passive, almost like we were taking the game for granted and the opposition for granted a little bit, which isn't the sort of mentality you want to see in a game like this. You want to see your team being ruthless. You want to see your team putting the opposition to the sword, because, Sheffield Wednesday were, as we expected them to be, pretty poor. They weren't great. The atmosphere was incredibly flat, as you can imagine. It would have been such a difficult game for them, and they're just not playing well anyway in general. But you just would like to see Boro laying down a marker, putting down, stamping their authority and saying, we are a top side and we are going to show our ruthlessness. But unfortunately, we just didn't. And as much as the 3 points matters massively to us, if you're another side competing at the top of the championship and you're watching Boro last night, there's nothing about that performance that scares you at all. It was another one of them that falls under the bracket of just, we got the job done. But then on the other hand, I guess if former Boro goalkeeper Joe Lumley didn't make as many bloody saves as he did, which we all expected would happen, it was written in the stars, Boro could have had a few more, and we'd be looking at this game completely differently. And then you could also look at it, and the big positive I sort of took from the game last night is we are a side who, at our worst, we don't concede. And I mentioned this about Burnley last season, and it was something I wanted to see from Boro. At our worst, we're still a very good side defensively. We barely give up anything, and it always gives us a chance in games, so that we are in a position most weeks where it's only going to take one goal for us to win a game of football, and that is what happened last night. So it could be another game that falls under the bracket of, the old Boro might not have won this game. I know that's easy to say in hindsight, but honestly, that was a huge banana skin that Boro sides would have slipped on in the past, and regardless of it not being far from convincing, Boro won, and that's, at the end of the day, the most important thing. So, looking at the team, it was an unchanged team, and that didn't surprise me after the brilliant performance that Boro had, of course, on Friday against Ipswich. As for the game, though, it actually got off to the perfect start. And the one thing I said, I might have mentioned it in the preview, I thought an early goal for Boro was huge. And I thought to myself, this will be a massive moment because You know, the longer the game goes on, the more the anxiety builds and the frustration could build amongst the Boro fans. It could give them hope. It could give them hope that they could get something from the game. An early goal stamps that out instantly, and we got that early goal, and it was a very well taken finish, and it was Morgan Whittaker. Once again, this is what happens when a player, a confidence player, finally gets going. Good ball back from Bergzog, a good cut back. The two wingers who performed so well, of course, and were instrumental in the 2 goals against Ipswich, were instrumental here. Once again, a good cut back from Della into Whittaker. And maybe a few weeks back, he'd have snatched at it, he'd have put his foot under it, and it would have went flying wide and high, but it didn't. He kept it down. It was a calm and composed finish, and albeit the keeper got a hand to it, it was a very well taken goal by Whittaker. And for him as an individual, it's amazing now to see, finally, he's clicking in a Boro shirt. It's 2-2 for him now, so here's hoping this form will just continue. And of course, it gave Boro that early goal. And I honestly thought, job done. As naive as that sounds, I thought, great, this is what we needed. Perfect. This is a chance for us to kick on now. But we never really did. And I think the word Edwards used after the game, and again, he's a wordsmith, he's never wrong, he picks the right words all the time. He used the word patchy, and I think that's the perfect way to describe Boro's performance. You know, we never, for one prolonged period, bossed the game. We never managed the game really well. We had spells where we were good, and then spells where we were bad. It was very up and down. It was a very inconsistent 90 minutes from Boro. And although, you know, there were spells where we were poor and sloppy and slow and ponderous and almost like we were taking the game for granted a little bit, which is the opposite of what we wanted Boro to do, we still had big moments and big chances which we should have done better with. And the big key moment, which I'll get onto first because it kind of underpins everything that happened afterwards, has to be one of the worst refereeing decisions I've ever seen. And it is so bad, Rob Edwards has apparently wrote to the PGMOL for an actual explanation as to why this decision was made. A heavy touch from Joe Lumley allows Tommy Conway to get ahead of the keeper, gets a clean touch on the ball. Lumley is miles away from the ball. He gets nowhere near it. He absolutely wipes Conway out in the box. It's a penalty. It's a red card. The referee, you'll see from one of the replays, is 20, 25 yards back. The clearest view of it that anyone could want, and he doesn't give it. It is insane. I'm baffled by this. I really am. I mean, even the Sky Sports commentators, during the coverage, paused. They went, oh, Joe Lumley's in trouble here. And then there was like a 10-second pause where they were even waiting for the whistle to blow. It is one of the strangest, most baffling decisions ever. How can a professional official qualified at this level get that wrong? It's insane. It honestly, I cannot make sense of it. The only thing I could think of, and this is me stretching my hardest to play devil's advocate, maybe, you know, Conway has a bit of a reputation this season for diving. It's happened a few times. Was it Preston or against Stoke, where I think Stoke he should have definitely had a penalty that wasn't given against Stoke. He did get booked for diving against Preston. The only thing I can think of is that maybe he's getting a bit of a reputation for diving, and the referees are sort of leaning towards not giving him a decision. But even that, I find a stretch. That's me just playing devil's advocate. I even find that a reach. The referees have got to approach every decision unbiased, and, you know, nothing else should come into their mind. That is a penalty every day of the week, and the goalkeeper should no longer be on the pitch, and Boro should have a penalty. And then maybe it's 2-0 and they're down to 10 men, different game. A just disgraceful decision by the referee. But anyway, we move. Boro, as I said, had some massive, massive chances in that first half. Tommy Conway especially should be very disappointed with some of his finishing. He had a 1v1 that he was played in. He took it with his right foot, sort of toe poked it towards Lumley. His reaction was decent, although Conway should have done a lot better. He had a header at the back post that he just got under. Head that down on target, it likely goes in the back of the net, so he'll be disappointed with that one as well. Delano Bergzog had a big chance. A cross from Britain was headed back by target. Bergzog, if it's either side of the goalkeeper, it's a goal. But alas, Boro couldn't find that elusive second goal. And we sort of trod through the first half. As I say, we had them moments. Sheffield Wednesday didn't have all that many. You know, they had some prolonged spells of possession, but Boro looked relatively comfortable. you're just willing us to take one of these chances and kill the game off, because as you know, as the game continues on, as the game goes, there's more of a chance as it stays 1-0 that they are going to get an opportunity. They are going to get a moment. It could be a mistake, a moment of brilliance, a set piece, anything could result in a Sheffield Wednesday equaliser. So you just know Boro just need a second goal and the game's dead. It's done. But we just could not finish our chances and get that second goal. And we go in at half-time 1-0. It's a pretty average performance, but you're hoping second half things can improve. But the second half wasn't great by Boro at all. Now, I do think Sheffield Wednesday definitely increased their performance levels. I will say that. I thought it was more that they improved second half rather than Boro getting better or worse. We just kind of stayed the same, really. Again, it was really frustrating to see how passive we were at times. You know, we're 1-0 up, we're against a team who were there for the taking. The game's there to be won comfortably, and we just, again, so passive. You know, poor passes, plays half a yard off it. We allowed Sheffield Wednesday back into the game. We allowed them time on the ball. We allowed them prolonged periods of possession. And, you know, a team with more quality would have probably punished us in this situation. It's one of them where, yeah, okay, maybe because we're against the worst team in the league who are in a really bad moment, you can get away with this. But against other sides, you wouldn't. And that's something that Boro have definitely got to think about, because we did allow them chances. You know, Solbryn had to make a save from a left-footed effort that was cut back. They had a header, I think it might have been a corner at the box. Header bounced off Brown, I think. Bryn was misfooted, but thankfully reacted well to still make the save. We gave them openings, we gave them hope, and you're just willing for Boro to kill the game off, and still we didn't. You know, Conway had another chance in the second half that he probably should have done better with, as a deflected shot fell to him. Again, yep, Lumley made the save, but looking back, Conway should do better. You know, 3 chances you could say he's had where he should have done better. The one that I cannot believe Joe Lumley saved was the one from Alan Brown. I mean, this was a ridiculous save. Corner comes in, flicked on from Dale Fry. Alan Brown almost at point blank range with an absolute rocket, and it's just a reaction from Joe Lumley, and he tips it over the bar, and you're thinking he has made more saves in this one game than he did his entire Boro career. Of course, I think it was 6 saves he made in the end. He prevented an XG of 0.82. You sat there thinking in the away end, he should be sent off. We keep missing chance after chance. We know what's coming. We've seen this script 1,000 times, and because Boro just weren't managing the game very well at all, the anxiety and frustration in the away end was just building and building and building, waiting for that inevitable sucker punch. Thankfully for us, it didn't come in the end, and the game did sort of just peter out. What I will say is some of the subs that Edwards made were a bit strange. You know, there was one point where he took Tommy Conway off and brought on Aidan Morris. So we weren't playing with a recognised centre forward, which was odd. Nipan, who'd earlier come on for Strelets, was the number 9 for a brief period, which I thought was really, really strange. He did then bring on Cali Sen, who I thought would have came on earlier. He had a chance towards the end as well. Played in by Nipan, a great first touch from Sen. Again, Lumley is equal to it. I actually think this is a better save than some maybe give it credit for. You know, it's low to his left. It's a very good save once again. But thankfully we hold out, and thankfully we do get the victory. But it's one of them where, you know, what do you focus on more, the performance or the result? Because performance-wise, this was not great, and you want to see your team be a lot better than this. We should have been better in them big moments, but, you know, when you're playing a team as poor as this, we allowed them way too much time in the game, way too much possession and spells where they were able to just pass it around, put balls into our box. We put pressure on ourselves needlessly at times last night, and it could have been a hell of a lot worse had we come away from that result with nothing. But then on the other hand, yeah, we had big moments, and had we took 1 or 2 more, had Lumley been sent off, if the ref done his job, Boro could have came out convincing winners. So it's a strange game, this one. A very, very strange game, and it was just a strange atmosphere as well. I don't think we'll ever attend a game like that again. As I said, Boro had more fans in the stadium than Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, I don't know where BBC Sport and Footmob are getting this 21,000 attendance from. I don't know who's feeding them that, because apparently there was 7,000 fans there, more Boro fans than Sheffield Wednesday fans. And I do wonder if that played a part in the atmosphere. You know, I can imagine playing in such a flat atmosphere away from home as well is very difficult for a side. You know, the Boro fans generated a lot of noise and did try and get their team going. And I don't think it's all because of that. I don't think it's an excuse for Boro's complete, performance being a bit under par. But I do think you've got to also factor that in. You know, it's a very strange atmosphere. It was difficult in the away end because you're surrounded by noise anyway. But I'd be interested to hear what people thought watching on the TV. You know, what it was like to watch. I've seen some people I've spoke to describe it as like a game out of the COVID times. So, yeah, maybe that is what led to, the game being flat at times and Boro being a bit flat at times. But regardless, you want to see an improvement from that. And hopefully, it's just one of them where sometimes when you're playing in a certain, atmosphere against a certain side, you can fall to that level a little bit. And back at home the weekend, but the fans won't allow for a performance to be that flat, and at home in front of 20 to 30,000, it'll be a lot better on Saturday. And, if Boro do back this up with a win on Saturday against Wrexham and we're a lot better, the performance will be forgotten about and the result will be all that matters here. But of course, if Boro do take some of them tendencies into the Wrexham game, that's when the performance here gets a lot more highlighted. So hopefully we just move on now, draw a line under this, and go on and get a 9-point week, which would be nice. The stats aren't bad reading. As you can see, though, this is the thing. They had more possession than Boro, and that shouldn't happen. Obviously, possession is a nonsense stat, but that's what I mean just in terms of allowing them, to be in the game, to stay in the game. I would have liked us to have put them away a lot earlier and made easier work of it. But as you can see, the chances we did have were very, very good. 1.5 XG is much better from Boro. Once again, 19 shots, 7 on target. It's, still some good opportunities in that game in moments, as I say. I just wish we'd have been a bit more ruthless at times. Talking about the team, though, I can see there being changes ahead of the Wrexham game. There were some below par performances out there. I thought Bryn did well enough. He made 1 or 2 really good saves, a good reaction save from the corner. I thought the defence did their job, really. The centre-backs were very good, heading and clearing pretty much the majority of everything that came in the box. The full-backs were okay as well. Britton, Target put some good balls into the box. Of course, Target with the cut back to Della, who should have done better with his chance. The midfield, though, was complete tale of two players, really. Alan Brown was magnificent last night. Hayden Hackney was pretty dreadful for his standards. It's frustrating with Hackney because we saw him boss Ipswich on Friday, absolutely run the show. He was top draw. Last night he could not play a pass. It's frustrating when your best players like that sometimes. Hayden Hackney, I don't know if I don't want to say his mentality was off it or anything like that, but there were times where he was just strolling around and his passing was off, and it felt like maybe he was taking the game for granted a little bit. I don't know. It's just obviously what you see from the stands, really. But yeah, Hackney had a poor game last night and was brought off. Hopefully that's just nothing but a blip in his form. And the front four, we're back to it being a bit of a conundrum again, I would say, because as great as Bergzorg and Whittaker were in the first half, I would say, Bergzorg had a great chance, should have scored, did set up Whittaker, who took his chance really well. Whittaker, I think, again, performance was much better than what it has been, and he took his goal well. But I think as the game wore on, second half, they did tire. They did look a little bit leggy. That's when we maybe should have brought them off a little bit earlier, possibly. I'm not too sure. I think they did sort of fizzle out of the game second half. Maybe that was down to fatigue. I don't quite know. And we have a conundrum again with Strelitz and Conway, and it's weird because Strelitz, I think, had a very good game against Ipswich, was much more involved, linked the play, put some good balls into the box. Last night, anonymous, completely anonymous. We didn't see anything from David Strelitz. Maybe, still adapting to the league. It's a difficult, unique atmosphere. He's maybe never played in before, and there is obviously just that bedding in period for any foreign player who's come to a new club. But I think we all know how good Strelitz is. We just know how good he is, the quality he possesses. You just want to see it. And maybe we just need to be patient and we will see it. But yeah, he was not in the game at all last night, and of course was replaced by Nipan, who might provide competition on Saturday now for Strelets in that position. And Tommy Conway, as always, his work rate, phenomenal. Pressing, fantastic. And he should have probably had a penalty, and I think was very harsh with the awful decision the referee made. However, I think he'll know as well as anybody he missed some big chances last night and has to be better in front of goal, does Tommy. You know, his header was over the bar. That was a strange one. His dink towards Lumley with the right foot 1v1 was strange. And then, of course, he had the shot second half where he had, acres of space to the right-hand side, straight at the goalkeeper again. Got to be better in them positions, Tommy Conway. And, we probably would like to see a few more goals from him, especially now he's back in his favoured position in the 9. As for substitutes, Nipan come on. Didn't see that much of him look tidy in moments. Aidan Morris come on. Again, I can't see him displacing Alan Brown, who was outstanding last night. Ayling come on. Maybe he comes back into the team, although that might only happen if we swap to a 5, which could happen at the weekend. We'll have to wait and see. Ayling, as I say, Callison come on. Instantly impact, pressing from the front. Made a great run, great first touch. Unlucky with his shot late on in the game. Is there a case for him to replace Tommy Conway? Maybe. So definitely some interesting headaches for Rob Edwards ahead of the Wrexham game. I still think Whittaker warrants a place in the side. Della, maybe. Hackney and Brown, I think, are still your midfield too. But I wouldn't say Strelets has that position nailed down, and neither does Conway. Apart from his work rate, we need to see a bit more from him as well. So it will be interesting to see what happens at the weekend when Wrexham come to town, and there will be a preview of that game dropping tomorrow, of course. But the league table still is happy reading for Boro. We went into last night's game after Tuesday night's results knowing that a win would open up a lovely little gap for us and would allow Coventry to not run away with the bloody league. So yeah, good to see us find a way and get the result. I would have liked, as I say, more goals. Get that goal difference a little bit more higher. Get a few more goals past the opposition. Make a bit of a statement. Didn't happen, unfortunately. But 24 points from our first 11 is still a great return. 1 point behind Cov, who, all things considered, are absolutely just destroying teams right now. So to be 1 point behind them, I think, is fantastic for us. It really is. But yeah, a 4-point gap to third is brilliant. Of course, though, the main aim is playoffs, and we have a 6-point gap to 7th, which is huge. So yeah, really good from Boro, and as I say, a really good opportunity now to host Wrexham at the weekend, who come to town, and Boro have, the best home record in the Championship as things stand, and Wrexham give up some of the most chances in the league as well. So a big chance for Boro, hopefully, at the weekend to put in a better performance and get 9 points from 9. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on this performance. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, hit a like and support the channel by subscribing and leave me a comment below. And you can, of course, listen to this on your chosen podcast provider via the link tree in the description below. As I mentioned, there's a matchday vlog currently on the channel, so check that out if you haven't already. I've got a gaming channel at the moment, link in the description, where I'm doing a Boro career mode on FC26, to which we are now in the Premier League, so check that out if you haven't already as well. And there'll be a preview of the Wrexham game dropping, hopefully, tomorrow. So much going on, such a big turnaround. Thank you for your support, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.